tonight.
And it's enough to lift our voice and sing
To the living God.
to the living God.
No one can deny
No one can deny
that Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ is the Most High. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Last week, for the first time, we started a new sermon series. And that sermon series is called Soaring Like an Eagle. And last week, and if you didn't get a chance to see that video, you need to go back and get that video, because that video is what this sermon series is all about. It's about getting us to the place where we are able to take advantage of the promise that God has given us. He has given us the promise that we will be able to soar like eagles. And no matter what problem that you have, no matter what's happening in your life at this particular point, you've been promised by God that you're going to have the ability to soar over. One of the most amazing things that we learn about an eagle is that they love storms. They love them because when the storm comes in, the wind gets high, and it's in those storms that he's able to do what he's created to do, and that's to soar. We talked last week about how the eagle is able to soar and only using about 10% of his own strength. If you think about an eagle, even when you look out and you see one flying, he's not doing a whole bunch of this stuff.
Right.
But what he's doing is he's using the wind beneath his wings, literally, to push him up to heights that he's never seen before. And what we've got to get as Christians is to the place to when we go through any kind of storm in our life, and we will go through storms.
Right.
Storms are a natural part of the process. Storms are great because storms come into areas that are dry. Think about this Serengeti, a complete desert. And all of a sudden, a storm comes. And out of that storm comes all of the vegetation and the food and the water that an entire population of animals need in order to live off of and grow for an entire year. Storms are great in our lives because they bring to the forefront all types of things that are beneath the surface in our life. All types of gifts and things that are beneath the surface, the seeds that God has planted within us, they come out during the storm. So we love storms. It's all about how we react in storms. Do we soar? Do we behave like turkeys and chickens, right? So this week, I want to just talk with you about renewing your strength. Last week I talked to you about waiting. We looked at wait. How to wait, when to wait, what to wait for. But the reality of life is, waiting is hard. When you don't have a job, and you're putting in applications and you're doing everything, you went to school, you did everything that you were supposed to do, but you don't get a call back and you can't find a job, and folk, even me from the pulpit is saying, hey, just wait on the Lord, it becomes very hard.
Right.
When you're sick, your body's hurting you and you can't sleep at night, and I'm up here telling you that you just need to wait, that God's going to heal you, that he's going to give you everything, you know for yourself that waiting is hard.
Right.
Well, when I'm telling you that God's going to help you with your children, all you need to do is wait on him. Man, doesn't that sound good from up here? Make you feel real good. But the reality of it is, waiting is very hard. And sometimes we wait and wait and wait, and we run out of energy waiting. When I'm sitting up here telling you that your marriage is going to come together, that God has put you together and he's going to fix your marriage, all you have to do is trust in him and wait on him. You go home and things have not changed, and you're waiting. I think you come to the same reality that I come to, is that waiting requires a lot of strength.
Right.
You know, sometimes waiting is actually harder than doing. And I believe that maybe not everybody, but there are few people who've been waiting. You've been trusting God. You've been believing in God. You know God gave you this promise. You know that God told you that he was going to deliver this thing to you, whatever it is. And now you find yourself in a position where you're just worn out and waiting. You don't know if you can wait any longer. You're beginning to think about doing some things and activating some things and getting outside of your blessing. And what I want to come and tell you today is that God is going to renew your strength.
Amen.
He's going to renew your strength so that you can continue to wait, so that you can continue to prepare, and so that you can get ready to soar. Last week, we looked at the children of Israel during Isaiah's time there in captivity. And they get to this place of frustration. They no longer believe, really no longer believe, start to out loud say, God's not going to help us. God has forgotten about us. God's not going to save us. God's not going to do what he said that he's going to do. And so Isaiah prophetically, last week we looked at this, begins to speak to the people. And he begins to remind the people, listen, we're in no different position now than our great-great-grandparents were in Egypt. We're in no position now than what God has been able to do for many generations. You know, all those stories, all those Bible stories that we shared all these years. We talked about the people being in the wilderness, but God got them into the promised land. We talked about the people being slaves, but God rescued them from slavery. We talked about how he got them through the Red Sea and all the stuff that he did. Do you remember that? And what he begins to tell us that same God, that same exact God who did all that stuff that we talk about and we remember is the same exact God that is alive today.
Right.
And he reminds them three promises that God gives them. He says, first of all, doesn't matter what your situation is. It does not matter what you're going through. I get it. I know it's hard. I know waiting is hard. I know you feel like some things that God promised you that he's kind of left you out there and you've gotten left with the bag, right? I know you feel like you don't know how you're going to get through it, and it feels like you're all alone. But the first thing Isaiah communicates to the people is that he says to them, God sees you in your situation. He remembers that he put you in that marriage. He remembers that he gave you those children. He remembers that he gave you that job. He remembers that you lost that job.
Amen.
But not only does God see you in that situation that you're in, that thing that you're waiting on, that help that you're waiting on, but that he has the ability to fix it. Yeah, your problem is not so much that God cannot fix it. He's done some pretty amazing things, well documented throughout history. But the thing I want to get across today is that Isaiah tells the people, he begins to explain that God has this ability to renew them. So if he doesn't give you what you want tomorrow, if he doesn't get you through what you need to get through, he can give you what you need in order to make it to the next place.
Amen.
So my question to you today, and I need you to kind of think about this, is are you in need of renewal? See, I think the biggest challenge for us, especially the modern day Christian, is getting to a place where you have enough humility to admit, I can't carry all this stuff.
Right.
You know, we just want to keep piling stuff on. We don't want anybody to see the fact that we've got too much on our plate. We've got too much going on. We're being pulled in too many different directions. We're about to lose our minds. But we haven't even begun to recognize that we need to be renewed. I need to be refilled. I don't have enough. My mind is about to snap. So Lord, I need you to come in and I need you to fix my mind. My body is giving way. I'm falling apart.
Right.
I need you to come in and touch me and heal me. My spirit, I'm starting to doubt you. I'm starting to wonder if you can do these things that you promised me in my life. I'm starting to wonder spiritually whether or not you are the God that I read about. What Isaiah says in the 40th chapter in verses 30 and 31, he begins to identify this fact that we get to a place, all of us, listen, there's no such thing as super Christian. There's only one super, that's Jesus. We get to a place in our lives, even when we pray, even when we work in the church, even when we're doing everything, we're being the best mom, best dad, even when we're out being the best husband, best wife, best employee, we get to the place we get tired.
It's true.
He says, youth may faint and grow weary. And young men, even young men, they stumble and fall. But those who trust in the Lord, wait on the Lord, well, they're going to be renewed. And they're going to mount up on wings, and they're going to do this soaring thing that we're getting to. We're going to all be soaring before it's all over with. But what Isaiah points out to the people is, yes, God has the ability to fix your situation. Yes, God sees you in your situation. But more importantly, listen, God has whatever you need to get through the situation. He would not promise it to you
Come on.
if He wasn't going to give you what you needed to get through it. And the expectation from your God is not that you defeat some supernatural thing in your life, but it's that in this supernatural event in your life where you feel like you cannot make it, you cannot pull it together, you can't keep your mind right, you can't keep your spirit right, you can't keep your body right. In that instance, you turn to God because you trust Him. Because you believe He can save your family. Because you believe He can save your job. Because you believe He can get you a new job. Because you believe He can change you. He can redeem you from the mistakes that you made, from the addictions that you have. Because you believe that He can bring your child back home to you.
Come on.
Amen. That's right.
What God shows us through the prophet Isaiah, so prophetically, is there 3 areas in which we have to go to God in order to get our strength renewed. He says, first of all, He mentions this thing called fainting. So I looked that up. I was confused. I know it means to faint. I grew up in a church where we had a fainter, just like some of your churches. We had a fainter. But I never understood what that meant. And so I looked it up. I love WebMD. And to faint means to lose momentary consciousness. The blood or whatever causes it to happen, you don't get enough blood, enough circulation, whatever the case, it could be anxiousness. But regardless of what it is, for a moment you lose consciousness. And what I feel Isaiah is saying to us when he says that fainting is one of them, is that one of the areas that we need to be able to go back to God and get renewal on is mental strength.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, sometimes we just have too much on our mind, and we're worrying about things, we're doing things, and we're worried about the thing we're doing, and we're worried about the next thing that's coming up, and then we're doing some more stuff, and we're doing some stuff at church, and we're doing some stuff at work, and we're doing some stuff in the community, and then we got some stuff going on in the house, and then way down where Mama and them is, we got some stuff going on down there, and we just got too much going on.
Praise God.
Hallelujah.
Absolutely.
You preach. Amen.
And you can't do this you can't do it by yourself. Listen, your computer, with its many gigabytes, gets to a place when you accidentally do too many things and you get an hourglass spinning. As smart as your computer is, as much space and capacity and memory as your computer has, it also gets to a place where it just can't compute. It's just, you got to be doing, hey, slow down. You're trying to open too many things at one time. So it's the case with you.
True.
You get that hourglass spinning sometimes. You can't remember this. You can't think. You don't know what to do. You get frustrated. You close the door and you do what? Cry.
Shut down.
He not only says that we faint, but he says that we grow weary. And what I hear the prophet saying to us is that we get in a place sometimes where physically we become weak. We need to go to God for physical strength. I go to God for everything. I get a cough that becomes a couple of days. I'm going to God. I'm saying, can you fix this? Because But then he takes it a step further. And he says that people stumble. He says that you stumble and fall. And what I hear him saying is not like, you have a lot of stuff in your hand, you walking up the steps and you stumble and you fall down the steps. I don't think that's what he's talking about. When we see stumble and fall throughout the Bible, we're talking about spiritual things. When Adam made his mistake and Eve made their mistake, that was the fall of man. Every once in a while, we'll get in a place where we've got an addiction that we can't kick. We've got an attitude that we can't get rid of. We've got some questions about God in our situation that we cannot shake. We've got some things that we don't, we say we believe. We do all the things. We sing the songs. But there become some questions. Spiritually, we have questions. And we need to go to God. Listen, He is the only person who can restore your needs, whether they be mental, physical, or spiritual. Books, self-help books not going to get it. Counseling not going to get it. Listen, your pastor, I can't fix this. The best thing that I can do is to get you into a place where you can go to God and say, hey, God, you say an X amount in these words, and you say that I can come to you for mental strength. You say that I can come to you for physical strength. You say I can come to you for spiritual strength. The best that I can do as a pastor is to get you to the place where you feel free enough to be able to go to God when you need to be renewed. That's it. I can't do anything else.
Amen.
I mean, even if I could lay hands or speak into your life, I'm not doing that under my own power.
Right.
I'm not special. I don't have any special gift. Only thing I can do is get you just a little bit closer to God and get out of your way.
Come on.
Brother Laderick, amen. But he not only shows us in those two verses the things that we have to take to God to be renewed, but then he points to this thing about this eagle, and he kind of links this renewing to the eagle. And so there's a lot of questions about what he means there. There are a lot of different commentaries and different examples for what he means. But I came across this legend of the eagle. It's an amazing legend. And what it says is that this eagle generally lives to be about 35 to 40 years. That when that eagle gets to be 35 to 40 years old and he knows he's coming to the end of his life, he has a very difficult situation that he has to choose from. He can either die, which is going to happen, or he can go through this process, which is going to cause him a lot of pain. It's going to require him to do a lot of changing, but it's going to result in him having double his life. If the eagle decides, I'm not ready to die yet, I want to live another 40 years, the first thing he has to do is he has to go to the highest mountain he can find. He has to go as high as he can. He has to get as close to the sun as he possibly can. So he goes as high up in the mountains as he possibly can. This is not easy for him. Because at this point in his life, he's gotten to the place where his wings are just full of dirt. They've gotten almost stuck to his body at this point in his life. His beak, he can't really protect himself because his beak has got so much calcium on it. Can't really even feed itself. His talons, those things that he used to use to defend himself, they've all gotten weak. They've all gotten to the point where they can't grab anything and he can't defend himself. And so he has to make this journey all the way to the top of the mountain, as close to the sun as he can possibly get. Now, when he gets to the top of the mountain, he has to take himself through this grueling process. The first thing he has to do is he has to take his beak, it's all messed up, it's got calcium in it, he can't even eat out of it much, and he has to take that beak and beat it against the rocks. And he beats it against the rocks until it completely falls off. And so he has to go through a period of time where he has no way of eating, no way of protecting himself, nothing. He has to trust that he's gotten high enough on that mountain to where nothing will come and eat him. He's close enough to the sun to which God can work. Over time, that beak starts to grow back out. And the next thing he does, he takes that new beak and he pulls every feather out. It could be up to 7,000 feathers in a grown bird. It's a legend now. He pulls out every feather of his body. And he goes into the sun. He just stays into the sun, and he allows for the sun to renew his body and for his feathers to begin to grow back. He then takes his exact same beak and he pulls out all his talons out of his feet. And once again, he just waits on the sun to give him back his talons. And if he does that, and the legend says it takes about 150 days for all that, the beak to grow back, the feathers to grow back, talons to grow back. If he does that, then he is reborn a new eagle. He is renewed to his youth. I'm convinced that we get to the same places in our life. We get to the place where flying and soaring is not easy for us because we've got too much dirt on us. We've made too many mistakes. We've got too much in our past. Those things that we used to fight with, they don't work anymore. We don't scare anybody anymore. We just make a lot of noise. We become grumpy old men, old women. But the mouth that we use to kind of speak life into us, to feed us, just like a bird uses his mouth to feed himself, we forget how to feed ourselves. We forget how to encourage ourselves. We forget what the songwriter means when she says, sometimes you have to encourage yourself. Sometimes your situation is so bad that you don't even want to hear from nobody else. It's going to be all right, baby. Just hang in there. Just wait. You don't want to hear that. But there's one person. Listen to me, somebody. There's one person that can speak to you directly where you are today. I know it's hard. I know waiting is hard. I know your situation is tough. But there's one voice that you can hear, and it is your own. The question becomes for us today, how do we get renewed? How do we do what this eagle has done? This eagle has gone to the mountain, has done all these things and gotten rid of his old beak and gotten rid of his feathers and pulled out his toenails. What do we have to do as Christians to get this renewal thing that we need, to get the new energy, to get us through whatever our situation is? And I found these verses in Colossians that I want to share with you. Going to Colossians chapter 3, verse 1, it says, so if you have been raised with the Messiah, if you believe in Jesus, if you're on a team, man, if you are giving your hand to God, this is how you're going to get renewed, is through this method. He says, seek what is above, where the Messiah is. Climb to the top of the mountain, guys. Make the decision that you want to be renewed and start making your way to the highest point. And the highest point within our faith is to get as close to the sun as we can. The S-O-N, not the S-U-N. He says where the Messiah sits. He's seated at the right hand of God. He says, set your minds on what's above. You see, what happens so many times, we're looking for us to be renewed in the spot where we are. We're way down here. We in the muck and the mire, and we're expecting for the renewal to come from heaven and give us some strength where we are. But we need to elevate our minds first of all. We need to begin to reach for God. We need to begin to set ourselves high above our situation. And don't look at ground level at your situation. Amen. He says, set your mind on what's above. Reach for Jesus during your situation. He says, not on what is on earth. Stop looking at the letters that you're receiving. Stop looking at the way folk treating you. Stop looking at the boss and the husband and the wife and the brother and the sister and the mama and the daddy, and start looking at Jesus.
That's right.
Stop looking at your situation. Start looking at your God. Take your eyes off the thing that is in front of you and look high. Look high as you can. Get as high as you can in this season. He says, therefore, verse 5, put to death what belongs to your worldly nature. You got to pull those feathers off. You got to put to death the old stuff that you used to wear. You got to pull those talons out. You got to get rid of that beak. He says, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. When you run behind money, that's idolatry. That's what I did. Because of these things, God's wrath comes on the disobedient. In other words, part of the reason why you're not getting that renewal that you're expecting might be because you got too many old feathers on. Part of the reason that you're not eating and being renewed might be because you got the old beak on. Part of the reason that you're not able to defend yourself and you feel like everybody is kicking you over and treating you bad and taking advantage of you, and that's real. But it could be because you've got the old talons on. And what God wants to do is He wants to get you to a place of renewal where you have your new wings, where you have your new beak, where you have your new talons. And then He wants you soaring. He says, because of these, God's wrath comes on the disobedient, and you once walked in these things when you were living in them. A little bit further, he says, in verse 8 and 9, he says, but now, you must also put away all the following. So he begins to work on our attitudes. He says that anger, that wrath, that malice, that slander, that filthy language. Lord have mercy. Which comes from your beak. The old beak. He says, don't lie to one another. That old beak. Since you have put off the old self, since you've gotten rid of the old feathers, since you've gotten rid of the old beak, since you've gotten rid of the old talons, what he says, and have put on the new self, you're being renewed. You're getting your renewed. You're becoming your new self. You're becoming a new creature. You're no longer that old person where stuff, any little thing used to get you down, where any little thing used to set you off. You're no longer that person. You become renewed. You get your new wings. You get your new talons, your new beak. He says, and that renewing is in the knowledge according to the image of your Creator. What we learn is that renewing your strength requires you to do a couple of things. The first thing you have to do is you have to reevaluate your situation. That eagle has to stop and realize, listen, I don't have much time left. I've got to make a decision. If I want to go forward, I've got to go to the sun. And what we have to do in our lives is we have to stop at some point and reevaluate our current situation. We have to be humble enough to come to God and give it to Him. Second thing we have to do is we've got to reconnect with our source. That eagle makes his way to the highest mountain, the highest rock that he can get to. He needs the sun in order for all these things to happen. So he gets as close to the sun. He gets up on the rock because there's protection on the rock. Other animals can't get to him. You need to understand that who your source is. The rock in our life, you know, that solid rock that we stand, all other ground is sinking sand. Jesus is the rock in our life. Jesus is the sun, the real sun in our life. The thing that we go to, the thing that we must reconnect to whenever we're going through anything. Listen, if you're tired and you need renewing, you've got to connect to God. There's no book to read. There's no place to go. Coming in here every week won't do it. You've got to get to a place where you get way up high and get as close to God as you possibly can. And it has to be something that you do day in and day out. Not only do we need to reevaluate and reconnect, but we need to relinquish our pride. Mm-hmm. I'm convinced that there are a lot of us who really need help. We look good way up there as we soar. But our wings are dirty. Our talons are no good, and our beaks are no good. And we're too proud to come forward. We need prayer. We're not coming to the front. We need help. We're not coming to the ministry meetings. We need to be around people who can encourage us. We're not going to let anybody know. I've learned a couple things. So when you got a small church like ours, people tend to think, well, everybody's going to know my business. And when you got a big church, then everybody think, well, nobody there really cares about me. And really what it comes down to is we've got to get to a place where we don't care. We don't care what anybody says. We don't care whether anybody knows. We've got to get to a place where we do the thing that we're supposed to do, which is come and commune, ask for prayer, ask for guidance,
Yes.
be a part of the ministry.
Yes.
We've got to relinquish our pride. Then the final thing we've got to do is we've got to renounce our old ways. Listen, there's some things that we used to do that we can't do anymore. There were some things that you allowed to come out of your beak, that once you knock your beak off on that rock, you know the rock is Jesus. Once you take that beak to Jesus, some of those things don't need to come back out of your mouth no more. There's some talents, some fights that you fought before you pulled your talons out. You don't even need to fight those fights no more. There's some stuff that you had hanging on you. There's some lice. There's some dirt. There's some stuff that you had all within your wings. Some stuff that you were ashamed of. Don't pick that stuff back up no more. But that starts with renouncing your old ways. And that's the hardest part because it's sometimes hard for us to say, I was a sinner. This wasn't right. The way that I grew up, what I saw wasn't right. I'm messed up. I need help. So what are the benefits of renewal? Here we go. We get to that point where we ask the question, is the juice worth the squeeze? I'm asking you again to do a lot of things to get this renewal. Is it worth it? Let's look at the first verse real quick. It says, my soul praise Yahweh, and all that is within me praise his holy name. He says it again. He says, my soul praise the Lord, and do not forget all of his benefits. These are his benefits. These are the things that God promises to us that he will renew us. He forgives all your sins. Anything that you had inside of your feathers that you're not proud of, there's no need to condemn yourself. Listen, you have the ability to get over it, but in the meantime, understand that God doesn't hold it against you at all. The day that you brought it to him, the day that you laid it at the altar, was the day that he forgave it. He says he heals all of your diseases. And I know for some people, we're suffering with all different types of diseases. Some of them physical, some of them may be mental. There may be disease in our marriage. There may be disease in the relationships that we have. Disease could be in any kind of form. But God has the ability to heal anything that causes you any kind of disease.
He does, yes.
He redeems you from the pit. I know it feels like you're going to lose it all, or you may feel like you've made a mistake that's too big, that there's no turning around for you. You get that God forgave you for it, but you feel like, hey, I'm still messed up. You may have to pay some consequences. I'm not going to tell you that from here that you won't. But the thing that you need to understand is that God is not going to leave you there. That he will redeem you. And no matter what you've done or what mistakes that you've made, if God promised it to you, he'll get you to it. He crowns you with faithful love and compassion. He satisfies you with goodness. And check this out. And your youth is renewed like the eagle. Isn't that amazing?
Amen.
And what we learn from that is that the rewards of this renewing that God's going to give you is, first of all, he's going to give you redemption from all the mistakes that you've made. You come to him and you repent and you come sincerely. Doesn't matter what you've done, no matter what mistakes you've made, you've got redemption coming your way. He's going to rescue you from any attacks. So whether that be physical attacks in your marriage, whether that be attacks with your children, attacks at work, God has the ability to renew you in any place where you're being attacked. He's going to replenish you for everything that you lost. I know that's hard to believe because some of us have lost a lot as we pursued the thing that God promised us. But I always want to call on Job during this situation because let me tell you something. Job lost everything. And God gave him back way more than he ever had when it was over with. And so as you're waiting and as you're hurting and as you're suffering, you need to understand that God is going to replenish everything that you lost in this season. But the final thing is, you get the reassurance of God's power. There's nothing like this. Listen, what that means is that every time for the rest of your life, whenever you get into a situation where things are not moving in your favor, when things around you are not going well for you, you can always look back on the thing that God did in this particular season. Listen, for some of you, this is a very tough season. There have been some things that have happened to you during this season that you never thought you'd see. This has not been easy for you because the entire time that you've been working for the Lord and moving forward and doing those things that they told you that if you did these things, you did these 4 or 5 things, you're going to get this 6 or 7 or 10 things or whatever. Normally, you do these 2 things and you get 1,000 things, however it works out. That hasn't really panned out for you. For some of you, you got into something that looked like it was going to be easy. It was a promise from God. You got into a relationship. That relationship bloomed into a marriage, and now you get to a place where you know it's very hard. For some of you, you got into a school, a program, and you've not been able to get the grades, or you've had some challenges, and it's not been as easy as it was in the schooling prior. So you went from high school to college, and it's difficult for you. For some of you, we got young children, you're going to be being faced with all types of peer pressure and just waiting and just being in your situation is hard because everybody's doing all the stuff that we told you not to do and we told you that God doesn't want you to do. And it's hard for you. It's hard for you. But let me tell you something. God sees you. God has the ability to help you. And God is getting ready to renew you. Married folks, God sees you. God has the ability to help you. And God is getting ready to bring a renewing to your marriage. Single folks, God sees you. He has the ability to fix your situation. And He's getting ready to bring renewing into your situation. All we have to do is do everything that we can to get to the sun. That's it. So I want you to think about this week. When I feel like giving up, I turn to the Lord to fill me up. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you're faced with, no matter what your situation is, all I want you to do this week is think about the many ways that you're going to turn back to God and allow Him to fill you up. Because listen, He's going to renew you. He's going to give you everything that you need to get through this situation. I don't care what it is. It could be finances. It could be relationship. It could be anything. If God promised it to you, He will deliver it to you. To God be the glory. Amen.
Here we stand in the presence of our Savior.
It's an honor
And it's an honor to lift our voice and sing
to the living God.
to the living God.
No one can can deny that Jesus Christ